Good morning, students. How are you all? Hope you all are doing well. Anyways, stay safe. We are going to our lessons. Today, we are going to learn a lesson from our second unit, Heights of Harmony. This unit comprises 3 chapters. The first one, a much celebrated poem, Mending Wall, written by the famous American poet Robert Frost. And the second one, a thrilling short story of 2 friends, Amigo Brothers, by Perry Thomas. And third one is a one-act play written by Percival Wilde named Hour of Truth. Besides some linguistic elements, discourse level activities and so on. Anyway, we can start. You have noticed the title of our unit, Heights of Harmony. What does it mean, Heights of Harmony? What is harmony? Harmony means to live in peace with your fellow beings, your environment. So, as we are social animals, we have to live together, considering our fellow being, agreeing their ideas, agreeing their activities. Then only we can lead a beautiful life. This unit starts with a beautiful quote by Julia F. Carney. She says, "Little deeds of kindness, little words of love makes the earth an Eden like the heaven above." Little words of love, little deeds of kindness, little activities of kindness, a small gesture of love, a small movement of love, a smile makes this world a heaven. So there are some certain qualities like compassion, love, tolerance, truthfulness, which are essential to make the fabric of social relationship strong. Okay, so if we pay a visit to a seashore, we see this seashore shining in with its sand. The grain of sand knew how to coexist. So learn to coexist. Learn to adjust with your fellow beings. Understand them. Agree their ideas, their words. That's how we create a harmonious society. That's an elevated situation. That's a great situation. That's why it is great. Heights of harmony. Being in harmony with your fellow being is the greatest thing, is the most beautiful thing you can do. Okay, anyway, that's all about the topic, the title of the unit. We can straightly go to our chapter. Anyway, let's go to the topic, Mending Wall. Actually, there is a wide scope for discussion and group activities here. If we were in our normal classroom, we would do this in an exercise way. Unfortunately, for this time, we can't do that. Anyway, we can do it once you are back to classroom. Now, Mending Wall is a very much celebrated poem, very famous poem written by Robert Frost. It has been discussed for so long for its importance, for its relevance. It hasn't even lost its relevance in present situation too. It's a narrative poem. It narrates a story of 2 farmers, 2 neighbors who are farmers, and they construct they construct a wall between them, and the speaker of the poem, he doesn't like the wall. He's opposite against constructing the wall. He doesn't see any sense of constructing the wall between their property because he thinks it is an unnecessary thing. There are no cows, no cattle, and their property cannot be misunderstood because one is cultivating apple and the other one is having pine trees. So there is no scope for misunderstanding. Right. But at the same time, the neighbor of the author, the neighbor of the speaker is strictly follows his father's notion, his father's idea that once he's heard from his father that good fences make good neighbors. So he is not ready to change. At the same time, the poet is always ready to change. He is ready to accept others' views. He is open for conversation. But the neighbor is not at all ready to listen to others. Is not at all ready to have a conversation. He wants to keep the wall between them, and he thinks this wall can maintain the relationship strong. Good fences, he says, good fences make good neighbors. And the speaker does whatever he can do to bring this sense in the mind of his neighbor. He wanted to create this idea that the wall is not necessary in the mind of his neighbor, and at the same time he sticks to his old thought. Poem is written in 2 stanzas, and it is in blank verse. Blank verse means unrhymed lines. The poet doesn't follow any rhyming pattern in this poem, and he has effectively used colloquial style in this poem as he does in all other poems. We can find this poem begin in delight and end in wisdom as the speciality of all his poems. The poet makes use of so many poetic devices like personification, metaphor, simile, and so on. The poet tries to give a mysterious air to the poem from the beginning itself. He starts it by saying, something there is that doesn't love a wall. And he uses comic elements in between the poem to give it a better effect. Anyway, you can watch a small visualization of this poem and later listen to it carefully, read the poem carefully while it is shown on the screen. Later we will go into the deep discussion of the poem. Okay, thank you.
Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen groundswell under it and spills the upper boulders in the sun and makes gaps even two can pass abreast. The work of hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair where they've left not one stone on a stone. But they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. The gaps I mean, no one has seen them made or heard them made. But at spring mending time, we find them there. I let my neighbor know, beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line and set the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go to each boulders that have fallen to each. And some are loaves, and some so nearly balls we have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. We wear our fingers rough with handling them. Oh, just another kind of outdoor game, one on a side. It comes to little more. There where it is we do not need the wall, he is all pine. I'm apple orchard. My apple trees will never get across and eat the cones under his pines, I tell him. He only says, good fences make good neighbors. Spring is the mischief in me, and I wonder if I could put a notion in his head. Why do they make good neighbors? Isn't it where there are cows? But here there are no cows. Before I built a wall, I'd ask to know what I was walling in or walling out, and to whom I was like to give offense. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down. I could say elves to him, but it's not elves exactly, and I'd rather he said it for himself. I see him there, bringing a stone, grasped firmly by the top in each hand like an old stone savage, armed. He moves in darkness, as it seems to me, not of woods only, and the shade of trees. He will not go behind his father's saying, and he likes having thought of it so well. He says again, good fences make good neighbors. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen groundswell under it and spills the upper boulders in the sun and makes gaps even two can pass abreast. The work of hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair where they've left not one stone on a stone. But they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. The gaps I mean, no one has seen them made or heard them made. But at spring mending time, we find them there. I let my neighbor know, beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line and set the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go to each the boulders that have fallen to each. And some are loaves, and some so nearly balls we have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. We wear our fingers rough with handling them. Oh, just another kind of outdoor game, one on a side. It comes to little more. There where it is we do not need the wall, he is all pine. I'm apple orchard. My apple trees will never get across and eat the cones under his pines, I tell him. He only says, good fences make good neighbors. Spring is the mischief in me, and I wonder if I could put a notion in his head. Why do they make good neighbors? Isn't it where there are cows? But here there are no cows. Before I built a wall, I'd ask to know what I was walling in or walling out, and to whom I was like to give offense. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down. I could say elves to him, but it's not elves exactly, and I'd rather he said it for himself. I see him there, bringing a stone, grasped firmly by the top in each hand like an old stone savage, armed. He moves in darkness, as it seems to me, not of woods only, in the shade of trees. He will not go behind his father's saying, and he likes having thought of it so well. He says again, good fences make good neighbors.
You have read the poem. Now let's go to the details. Mending wall. The word mending means repairing. Repairing the wall that is built between the two farmers. Here the word wall stands for barrier. A barrier that blocks, that prevents meaningful communication. So Robert Frost through this poem, he wants to teach the whole world that it is important to communicate each other, to keep the friendship and all the other relationship warm and active. He starts the poem with something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen ground swell under it and spills the upper boulders in the sun and makes gaps even two can pass abreast. He says, something in nature, he doesn't specify which are the things. There are some things which we cannot mention that doesn't love a wall. He says, nature itself. Certain things in nature doesn't love a wall. That sends the frozen ground swell under it. That's why when we create a wall, the ground under it swell. In winter season after snowing, because of the heavy snowing, the mud under the wall swell. It grows bigger and spills the upper boulders in the sun. And when the sun appears, this frozen ground grows weaker and spills and throws the upper boulders and throws the big stones that were used to construct the wall and makes gaps even two can pass abreast. So once the stone threw away, there a gap is made. Two person can pass through the gap. Abreast means together, side by side. So the poet says, actually the poet doesn't like constructing wall. He's opposite. He's against constructing wall. So he wanted to put this notion in the head of his neighbor. So he says, the nature itself doesn't like the wall. That's why in winter season, the ground under the wall gets swollen and and when the sun comes, it spills, it throws away the stones that it bears and makes gaps there on the wall, and through the gap two persons can pass together. The work of hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair where they have left not one stone on a stone, but they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. The gaps I mean, no one has seen them made or heard them made, but at spring mending time we find them there. So another reason for the wall, the broken wall, the author says, one is the nature, something in the nature, as he said, the frozen ground, and the other reason for the broken wall is the work of hunters. The poet says, in spring season, in all spring season, they find the wall broken, and they do not know who break the wall. They have never seen someone breaking the wall. They have never heard the sound of breaking wall. But mysteriously, he gives a mysterious air to this normal thing but somehow in spring season we find the gap there, and we do not know who are making this gap. And he thinks that another reason for making this gap might be the hunters. The work of hunters is another thing. Other than the nature, it may be the hunters who break the wall. I have come after them and made repair. So after the hunters, I came and made repair. After the hunters, I came again and I put the stone on a stone, and again I constructed the wall. I have come after them and made repair where they have left not one stone on a stone. The hunters have thrown all the stones. They haven't left one stone on a stone. They have completely demolished and made a big gap in the wall. So after them the poet came and he repaired. But they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. Actually, why do the hunters break the wall? Because they want to find out the hiding rabbit. They chase the rabbit along with their dog, and the rabbit seeks shelter in a gap. The rabbit seeks shelter in a hole on the wall. So to drive the rabbit away or to find it out, they remove the stone one by one so that they make a gap on the wall. But they would have the rabbit out of hiding. They find out the rabbit by removing the stone on the wall, and they make the gap. To please the yelping dog. Why do they do this? They want to please, they want to make happy. To please the yelping dogs. They want to make their dogs happy. Actually, in real case, the dogs make their masters happy by hunting. It is the dog who hunts for the master and makes its master happy. But here, the author humorously says that it is the hunters who find that rabbit to make the yelping dog happy. The gaps I mean, no one has seen them made or heard them made, but at spring mending time, we find them there. The poet says, we have never heard the sound of breaking the wall. We have never seen a person or someone breaking the wall, but whenever we come there in spring season, we find the gap there. So the poet tries to give a mysterious air. He wanted to say it is something in nature. Something in nature break the wall. I let my neighbor know beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line and set the wall between us. Once again, we keep the wall between us as we go. So the farmer, the speaker, lets his neighbor know they decide a day to walk through the line. I let my neighbor know beyond the hill. I have a neighbor who stay beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line, and we decide a day and we walk together for the purpose of setting wall. We find the wall broken in spring season, so we decide a day and we work along with the wall, and we again reconstruct the wall and set the wall between us. Once again, we keep the wall between us as we go. So as we go, we construct the wall. You have watched the video, and the two neighbors, the two farmers construct the wall again. You have seen it. To each the boulders that have fallen to each, and some are loaves, and some so nearly bowls. You have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. We wear our fingers rough with handling them. So, to each the boulders that have fallen to each. So we, both neighbors, take each stone and keep where it was before. One by one we take and we place those stones one by one to rearrange the wall, to repair the wall, making it again, constructing it again. We place each stone on other stone. And some are loaves and some so nearly balls. The poet says, those stones by which they had constructed the wall, they look like loaves of bread. They are as flat as a loaf of bread, and some so nearly bowls. Some stones are just like bowl, globe like a bowl. Here the poet says the shapes of the wall, shapes of the stone by which the wall was made. And the figure of speech here he uses here is metaphor. He compares stones to loaf of a bread and bowl. Some are loaves and some so nearly bowls. So he uses metaphor here. He talks about the size, the structure of the stone. We have to use a spell to make them balance. And they say it is very difficult to keep these stones balanced, as these stones are just like loaves and bowls. It is difficult to keep them on a wall, and they had to use some kind of spell, magical words. They had to use some magical words to make them balance. Here also the poet tries to mystify a normal event. He uses spell, magical words. And he says, stay where you are until our backs are turned. The poet and the neighbor talk to the wall, to the stones on the wall. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. So here the poet makes use of personification, because he is talking to the stones. He wanted the stones to be balanced there, to make the wall, to construct the wall. The stone should stay there. But as these stones are loaves and bowls, it is very difficult for them to balance them. So they use some kind of spell, some kind of magical words. And he says the magical word is this: stay where you are until our backs are turned. So as he is addressing to the stone, it is personification. He is attributing human qualities to the sun. He is attributing the human qualities to the stone, because the stone is not capable of listening to you, it is not capable of obeying you. Still, the poet asks the stone, stay where you are until our backs are turned. So the poet makes use of personification here. We wear our fingers rough with handling them. By handling the stones, we wear our fingers rough. It just irritates our fingers. It doesn't make any other sense. We can't make the stones balance there. We can't construct the wall there. We just get our fingers rough. No other result. Or just another kind of outdoor game, one on a side. It comes to little more. There where it is, we do not need the wall. He is all pine and I am apple orchard. My apple trees will never get across and eat the corns under his pines. I tell him. He only says, good fences make good neighbors. So as we said, the speaker of this poem is not at all serious in constructing this wall. That's why he says it is just another kind of outdoor game. We are just having time pass. We are just having fun. It is just like an outdoor game, one on a side. A game something like tennis or badminton. Two players, one stand in the one end and the other one stand in the other end, just like this. It is just like an outdoor game. It comes to little more. It is nothing more than that. It is just for fun. And why does he say so? He explains his stance. Why does he say that there is no need of wall here? He says, there where it is, we do not need the wall. Actually, at this place where the wall stands, we do not need a wall here. Why? Why don't we need a wall? Because he is all pine and I am apple orchard. My neighbor, he has pine trees in his property, and in my property I have apple orchard. So there is no confusion between me and him. We won't misunderstand. I won't misunderstand. His trees are mine, and he won't misunderstand that mine is his. My apple trees will never get across and eat the corns under his pines. So here also the poet makes use of humor. He loves such the thought of the neighbor by saying, my apple trees will never get across and eat the corns under his pine. My apple trees will not cross the border, will not cross the fence or the wall and take the corn under his pine trees. And the same way, his pine trees won't come to my property and pluck my apple. It is not going to happen. Then why should we construct a wall between our property? And he says all these things he tells to his neighbor. He only says, good fences make good neighbors. But whatever the narrator, whatever the poet says, the only reply from the neighbor is, good fences make good neighbors. Whenever we construct the wall, we have to keep it good. So by doing so, we can have good neighbors. That's what he thinks. So he says, we need a wall. A wall is a necessary thing to keep the relationship warm. Hope you enjoyed the poem. We'll continue in next class. Anyway, study well, stay safe. Bye. Thank you.